Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about how I got to this. A list of all the character motivations and a seating chart of where they're going to be when the climax happens, as well as talking about possible moments that I was considering before writing all this out, and possible characters that might die. A lot of it inspired events that are going to be happening, but even at this moment I don't know how this is going to all pan out. So, as I come into this secondary climax, I haven't written any of these chapters quite yet. The last one that I wrote was chapter 87, and I haven't written chapter 86 yet, but I know what happens. I just need to actually write it. I basically written out like a beat sheet summary of what happens in chapter 86. I've written chapter 87, beat sheet for 88, semi beat sheet for 89, as well as 90 and 91 and 92. So I know what happens in these chapters. I just need to write them still. Now, we've gotten to the part where I'm not too sure what happens, and this is the real subject of the video, is the possible moments during this moment. In this moment, there's a lot of different characters involved, a lot of different people with a lot of different goals, and so I've basically written out a number of different possible things that could happen. A lot of them are potential fight scenes. A lot of them are maybe sacrifices or certain actions. But just, I wrote this last night when I was really tired, so I haven't really looked back at it yet. But it really looks like it's just fight scenes and cooperation and protecting. So, to add on to that, like this, when I say possible moments during this moment, this isn't like what's going to happen next chapter. This is what's going to happen throughout the rest of the book, which isn't like the biggest chunk of time, but it is still something, and I need to figure out what exactly happens. So I also have a list of characters that might die, and within this list, I've basically bolded characters that I think are more likely to die than not, and I've underlined and bolded characters that I think have a high chance of dying, and then characters that are not bolded have a small chance of dying. A lot of those characters I have plans for future books, but, you know, shit happens and maybe they'll die. So that's that. As of right now, the characters I think will potentially, more likely than not, die are Saint Voltaire, Jameis, Anya, Pyre, Zola, but mainly Pyre, Jameis, Anya, Voltaire. The reason why each one of those, I have a very good reason for why I think they should die. I'll start with Saint Voltaire. He was kind of introduced around chapter 20 or so, just by legend. Like, he's this, he's known for being this super sick, brutal fighter, and then eventually we find out that he's old, and he's like, oh, it's not a problem anymore, but then he, because of the powers within the book, he's able to basically reverse his aging and become youthful again and become a problem. So he's kind of had his arc. He's done a lot of damage. He might live, but I kind of don't really have a lot planned for him in the future. So that's why I underlined him. As far as Jameis goes, I have a scene in my head that I think would be pretty cool, because at the beginning, he's the reason he kills Taquan. This is like chapter 5 or something, but this is like the kickoff point, the point of no return. And so he's responsible for basically killing his stepdad, because he's trying to execute orders from something within the military, and we'll just say that for now. And so now I think it would be kind of, and the reason I say Banco / Jameis is because he's currently pretending to be a Selthian, but it is Jameis, and nobody knows that it's Jameis. So I was thinking this could be a cool opportunity for him to sacrifice himself and maybe potentially either protect Garmok, which was the original target for his actions, and the original reason why he killed Taquan was to kill Garmok. However, he failed to do that. And another option is to basically protect Felicur, which they had fought in that early chapter as well. So him having some sort of reverse after witnessing everything that he has throughout the book could allow for a very nice full circle moment. Anya, she's a martyr. The only reason I really wanted to kill her off is because she has a very close relationship with Koda, and her death would have really hurt him and could potentially make him even more of a villain than he already is. As of right now, he's kind of gone down this villain arc because he almost lost his sisters. That's Anya. And if he really did lose his sister, and if the reason that he did lose her was because of his own actions, potentially I could see it going one or two ways. Either like full-blown villain, which I say villain loosely because it's more so just like a different set of values. But Koda could either do that or have a reversal and start to become a little bit better of a person, or Southian, which is still a person. Leo, Donnie, Raph, and Mickey are the 4 boys, but I don't have Mickey written because I don't want Mickey to die. I have plans for Mickey, but these 3, those are his boys, and I'm thinking if they die, might be kind of hard for him, and that would be fun to explore, like him losing his best 3 friends in this battle. And if I do go that route, I could potentially have one of them die in a previous chapter, or maybe I'll just have one of them die. But eventually I do want Mickey to be the last standing of these 4 child soldiers. While, like, Felicur, the main child soldier, is also around their age, he kind of is separated from them because of events that happen within the book. And Pyre, I think, would be pretty cool to kill off, though I also have a lot planned out for him in future books. But him dying, potential, reason why I think that might be good is because it could allow Kelvin to have a lot of growth. And similar with Anya's death, it would be a good martyr and potential catalyst for changing Kelvin's path in the story. Same with Zola. Zola would also be a martyr character. She'd really affect Garmok, and I just think, you know, that would be a very fun thing to explore. To sum up, the reason why this moment is so important is because Zola decided that she's going to single-handedly infiltrate Domos and basically usher out all of the contestants that are in the annual convict death tournament. However, it's a bonus convict death tournament, which really incites her to act. She's followed by a ton of people within Labion going to Domos. So that's one group going to Domos to stop this battle. And within Domos, you've got the royals and all of the humans there. And on top of that, within Romagar, the Selthians, Koda and a group of Selthians basically think that the humans aren't going to uphold their statement of peace. However, like, despite the fact that they just said, you know, we're going to have public peace, permanent peace with the Selthians, they're like, we don't buy it. Like, it's only a matter of time until they strike again. So like, we should do this now. And so Koda and a group of other, like several other Selthians basically band together and become heretics within the Selthians and basically create their own faction and decide that now is the time to end Domos once and for all, because, you know, these people can't be trusted. And so now we've got Koda and his group of Selthians, Zola and everyone that's following her going into Domos, wherever that is on the screen. And so that's why there's a lot of shit happening. So possible moments are Zola versus Pyre. They were originally had a relationship together, and Pyre actually was the father of Zola's baby. However, she's getting an abortion, so no longer Papa Pyre. He's also the son of Kelvin, but that doesn't matter right now. So St. Valentine versus Oganda. They fought before. Oganda basically tortured him, very much so. However, this fight wouldn't make much sense because Oganda is arriving to Domos with the sole intention of protecting Domos, because she finds that the peace that they established in the previous day to be very important and crucial to basically holding up her dead lover's will. Like, he pushed for peace with the humans, and now she's like, well, I'm gonna try to make you proud. That's basically it. And so St. Valentine versus fighting Oganda would only make sense if St. Valentine was the one ushering this battle and inciting this violence. Now, I think what would be even cooler is if St. Valentine worked with Oganda against Koda and his squadron. Reason being, like the first thing that comes to mind is Goku and Frieza versus Jiren. Like the good guy and the bad guy, even though both of them are considered the bad guy, Valentine and Oganda, but them being on opposite sides, teaming up to fight someone else, I just think that would be kind of cool. Voltaire versus Koda, they have also had a battle in the past. This battle makes sense as far as objectives go, because Voltaire is not on the same side as Koda. Oganda versus Koda, I feel like that's going to happen. I'm going to bold that. And I'm also going to bold this because I want that to happen. And I'm going to underline this one because I really think it's going to happen. Koda versus Claythea, that's probably going to happen, but it's not going to be that significant. Pyre versus Garmok. Yes, that is going to happen, but I don't think that it's going to be just Garmok. I think that it's going to be Pyre versus Garmok and Zola. Felicur versus Lincoln. Lincoln is the one who incites that battle. If Felicur accidentally gets revealed because he is wanted by all of Domos. So him being found out would lead to a lot of trouble, and which I think is going to end up happening because God, I love it when shit doesn't go according to plan. Moving on, actually, I'm going to probably bold that. Banco protecting Felicur, I think that would be really cool. That would be a full circle moment because they were best friends. However, Felicur doesn't know that Banco is Jameis, so maybe Banco protects Felicur without revealing to Felicur that he is Jameis. So I'm going to put Jameis right there. Kelvin versus Pyre, father versus son. I think that could be cool, and I feel like that'd be a later stage battle towards the end of this whole sequence. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, though, because that all depends on whether or not Kelvin goes, because as of right now, I have it so Kelvin's not going, because I think Kelvin needs to avoid acting, because he's found a comfortable spot, so it allows him to eventually act more in the future after having gained the courage in the future. But I think he's going to refuse going at first and then eventually go same day, but just showing up a bit later. Clark protecting Zola, yes, that's like her whole intention of going. However, maybe she that's Clark's goal, but maybe she's unable to. Ben Manuel protecting Pyre. Yes, that would be good. Good because it shows what Ben truly prioritizes. Ben Manuel protecting Felicur. I think I'm going to lean more towards Ben choosing Pyre's side rather than Felicur's, because he is going to be prioritizing the access of materials that he gets through the Royals instead of being with his friends. Also, he kind of has a problem with Felicur because of some brainwash stuff that happened in a previous chapter. Ben versus Felicur, probably not going to happen. Honestly, I'm going to italicize that because I don't think that's going to happen. Mickey, Donnie, Leo, Raph working with Oganda. Potentially could be cool because they fought in previous chapter. The boys acting as escorts to the tunnel. Yes, that's a moment. That's going to happen for sure. Zola working with Oganda. It could be cool because they were enemies at one point. Koda kills Anya, or responsible for her death, then Koda kill himself. Don't know about that last part. Probably just the first. Maybe. And I'm just going to leave it as is because I really don't know if that's going to happen or not. That depends on a lot of different things. I feel like it would be more so responsible for her death because of his push to kill the humans and basically making the royals prioritize killing any Selthians that aren't wearing royal garbs because they don't want to get shot. It's a whole lot of shit going on there. Banco protects Garmok from being killed. Shock turned to Jameis, revealed to be Jameis, dies protecting Garmok. Shocked. Like electric. So in my story, if you're a shapeshifter, if you get shocked with enough voltage, your disguise will be temporarily lifted, revealing who is the true person underneath the mask. Mariko protecting Garmok from some sort of crusader. Yeah, that's gonna happen because that's his homie. That's his big brother at this point. Okay, so we've got a number of things that have become a lot more prominent and desirable. And from there, I'm going to think and see what happens. We're gonna cut to take it away, future Michael. Okay, so it's been about 6 days since the last video. I've added a couple more things as far as like characters that might die. I've added these ones, just had a random thought that, you know, it might be kind of cool to have one of the main characters die, which made me think of these three. And then this one is actually one that I really think should happen, Eunice protecting Oganda. That is a very much a full circle moment for her character. And if she ends up dying, that would be pretty cool. Well, not cool, but it would make sense for the story. Another thing I added was this potential chapter because I was thinking of Kelvin and Banco being in the same scene, and if Kelvin leaves, it would make sense that Banco would follow, or Banco, and then that would be a good moment for him to like reveal who he is, as well as discuss steps moving forward and potentially leaving and returning to Domos and all of that. And so this could be a very good transformation chapter that's really going to focus on Jameis, because we haven't really explored his brain since like chapter 2, to be honest. It was like chapter 5. So now we finally get like a little bit more perspective of how he's feeling at the moment, as well as like tying in some transformation for Kelvin and his character. And it's a good parallel to Jameis and Felicur's relationship's a good parallel to Kelvin and Taquan. So it's kind of like he has this opportunity to be a better father figure. Not a father, but a father figure. Similar to how Taquan was a good father figure to Felicur, now Kelvin could be a good father figure to Jameis. Despite being a horrible father figure for his actual biological son. But that'll come eventually in the next book, or maybe further chapter. We'll see. So finished chapter 88, wrote that out, finished chapter 86. Still got to make a couple notes for both of those, but they're written out now. So now I'm in the process of writing 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, and by the time I'm done with those 5, I will be ready to explore all of these possibilities. And so as much as I want to continue writing out potential moments that could happen in this giant climactic scene, a couple things that I need to do before that are finishing those 5 chapters, as well as writing out every single one of these characters' motivations, as well as their current power specialization, in order to keep consistencies and have all of this information in front of me. So it's much easier for me to write. It's something that I did very similar to chapter 61. Right here, I've got specializations for all of these characters. Who's in the scene, what do they want? And so I have like Felicur wants peace to come from this meeting. And with these, who's in the scene, what do they want? It's also a seating chart, and it basically shows who is in the same specific place. While all these people are still in like the same mile radius, much less like quarter-mile radius. These 3 are sitting next to each other. This is the seating chart for all of these council of Selthians. This is the people who were on the ship. This is the council for, or some of the Selthians that were bringing back the council of humans, etc., etc. And so just like the other climax that's coming up, moments that could lead to satisfying arcs, I have that here as well. So it's kind of it's this process that I developed specifically for this sequence that I am now going to be doing once again in this new sequence of moments. This was not originally planned in the first outline, but it just ended up making sense, and all of these characters decided that this story must go on. Plus, I have a very fine, very specific point where I want this to end, and so I really want to reach that point and allow for a large time skip to really like have the story fully fleshed out and then be able to return to it eventually with a new cast as well as returning cast. So yeah, I'm gonna do a quick little time lapse now of me basically writing out every single character that's in this as well as their motivations. Actually, this isn't really something I can do quite yet because I'm not too sure how these first 5 chapters are going to play out, 89 through 93. So once I write those chapters, I'll have a better idea of how exactly this sequence is going to start. And from there, just before I actually start writing what goes down, that's when I'll actually write like the whole thing of like who's here, what do they want, seating chart, all of that stuff. And by seating chart, it's not like these people are sitting, it's just more so understanding who is with who and who's alone, who's coming with a group, what's that group, all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna end the video here and make another one once I get to the next point in this creation. Yeah, bye-bye. All right, so 3 weeks later, it's April 5th, and I've figured out what exactly happens in these chapters before this big moment. There's a couple things that I'm still writing, but I got them outlined. I just need to finish actually writing it. So Zola goes up ahead. She makes a tunnel. She's trying to get to Domos before everyone else. Felicur, Garmok, Mickey, Raph, and Merko all use these land vehicles to get to Domos, basically trying to stop Zola before she gets there. And eventually what I want them to end up doing is basically being these masked superheroes that end up helping and saving people of Domos so that they don't die amidst the battle that goes down. And so the battle is led by Koda, who makes his secession from the Union in chapter 86. So we get to see why exactly he wants to do that. We get a moment between him and Oganda. This is the official split. And then from there, Oganda's met with a decision whether she should join Koda in the eradication of the humans or if she should stand by the treaty that they had just created the day before and basically use this as a moment to protect the peace that she believes might be more than temporary. So she ends up siding with the humans and fights against her own people to protect the peace. And she does so because she believes that is what her dead lover would do, which is a whole thing as well. And also it's because she wants to do that as well. She has changed throughout the duration of the story, which I think is very fascinating. So yeah, I want to make this dinner. I haven't written this scene yet. I just have a couple moments that I have planned that I'll need to do. And what else? Oh yes. So one of the things was I wanted Pyre to seek out live Planck particles because they found out that the umbrella is made out of the same thing that the robot was made out of, but all of the umbrella particles are dead. They're not like live, they're not active, they're just stationary and locked into their position. So Pyre wants to get some that are able to be manipulated, live particles. And so Garmok ends up getting some live particles from Planck. So I went back into chapter 75, I went back 10 chapters, added a scene where Planck basically gives a small piece of himself to Garmok as a communicator, but also as a weapon so that he can defend himself, because Plank has realized, and Garmok has made it very clear that he can't really defend himself. After all, he is a child. Yes, he's very good with his words, and he knows how to rally a bunch of people, but at the end of the day, in a fight, he's kind of cooked. And so Plank gives him a small part of himself, complete with a fraction of the battery, as well as a fraction of his mind, which will not be something he can control over long distances. And like, there's a scene earlier where Plank detaches his hand, turns it into a rat, and can control the rat like a remote control rat. But because the distance between Mars and Venus is very, very large, thousands and thousands of kilometers, Plank is not able to retain that connection consistently. So it's more like a communicator if he needs anything, and also just a weapon that he can use to defend himself, which I thought was very cool, and also allows Pyre to have something to hunt. So Garmok ends up finding himself in a battle that he does not want, solely because Plank gave him a weapon to defend himself. So if Plank hadn't given him that weapon, Garmok would not be in that situation, which I think is kind of funny, because it's like, if you carry a weapon, you're more likely to get in a battle than if you are not carrying a weapon. I think, I'd like to think that, at least if you're unarmed, I mean, your only option is to either talk or throw some hands. But yeah, I thought that would be really fun for Garmok to try to defend himself. And there's another thing with Oganda, because she's going to be defending the humans. Something that she's not really able to do is she's not able to find the strength to actually take out Koda. Yes, she is defending the humans, but she doesn't have it in her to actually kill one of her own people with the sole purpose of defending her own people. So I thought that would be a very fun dilemma. It's very similar to Felicur. It's a parallel, I believe, because in a much earlier chapter, I think like around 30 or something, Felicur has to kill another human in order to preserve his own life. He's pinned against someone where it's either him or the other person survives. It's a death match during the annual convict death tournament. So I wanted to have it be something similar with Oganda. After all, one of the big themes in this story is, when is it okay to kill? So putting that pressure on Oganda to see if she's capable of killing one of her own people, can she do it? And that's something I'm not too sure if she's able to or not. I think yes. However, when the scene gets written, maybe things will be different. Maybe someone else will end up taking the blade. Maybe it'll be Garmok. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know. But I really have a fun idea of having Felicur, Mickey, and Raph, and Garmok all using their powers to save people, basically like the Avengers, and having it be this very fun moment, because there's been so much death associated with specifically Felicur's actions while having Siphon in his system, giving him the opportunity to save people with the exact same abilities that he used to cause chaos to the Royals. Really provides him with a new perspective of how these powers can be used, because this whole before this whole event happens, he's very much against it, because he's thinking like, anytime I do something, people around me get hurt. Like, for some reason, everywhere I go, there is just damage and destruction, and this is an opportunity for him to realize that that isn't the case, and that him being brave and being able to actually try to see what would happen, and ends up being a fruitful return. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much ready to start writing this final section. I mean, I've got a couple more things to finish out with these chapters. Another thing here is I want Garmok When Plank gives him the glove, this nanoparticle glove weapon communicator thing, he says only use it in case of emergency, if like you or other people that we know are in danger, because he's on a mission to go find a dragon. So Garmok actually uses the communicator begrudgingly because he's so worried about the situation. He's very anxious. Like, I think this is one of those situations, despite it being only a couple hours later, like, I think I need some assistance. And so Plank receives that message, and right now I'm thinking that he declines to provide help. And when Garmok sends the message, it's kind of more like I'm going to tell you the situation and you can decide whether or not you want to come, because he doesn't feel like it's okay for him to ask for help, because it's been so, like, it's been less than a day since Plank left. It literally just this morning he left, and now this is like mid-afternoon. So yeah, I'm thinking he doesn't come, but he might come, which would be kind of cool also. So yeah, that is the end of this update. This was me preparing for writing the climax of the story, which I thought I had already written the climax, but the story just kept going, and it made sense to have this much larger climactic event happen. I guess there's one more thing with the dinner, the whole plan of the dinner of having like people get to know each other a little bit better, and have the audience feel more connected to the people of Labion, specifically like Clark and the leader of some of the Selthians, like the leader, the person who stepped up after Groma died, that isn't Oganda, like the person who lives in the actual city. So we get to meet that person, which I'm thinking about calling him Solomon. I just think that's a cool name. And we also get to see Labion's sport, which is handball. I think low gravity handball would be so fun. And getting to see some of the humans try it out too would be really fun, giving them an opportunity to connect with this new land. More so a returned land, because they were here 6 years ago, but 6 years on Mars, more like a decade. So this is kind of like their childhood home, but that has been turned into something else, which they are still very excited to live here. So yeah, and one last thing about that is Kelvin tries to join but is declined because he's a royal, and despite him surviving this the Lactai moment of judgment in front of the people of Labion, he, despite being spared, people don't really like him. And I wanted to showcase that and really show, like, yeah, he is alone. Like, he was on top of the world at the beginning of the book, but now he's just alone and nobody really wants to hang out with him, which I think is fun. Well, not fun, but, like, it's good for the character. Anyways, that's all. Thanks for watching. Yeah, bye-bye. Okay, so right before this big moment happens, where I have all these possible moments that might happen in this moment, one thing that I really wanted to focus on for this whole sequence of events is Garmok's character. Specifically, I want his outlook on the world to be challenged, severely challenged, stress tested, essentially. And so the scenes moving forward, will he continue to live the way that his father did, or will that illusion start to crack? Will it falter? This is something that is slightly introduced like 30 chapters back, when Garmok and Felicur managed to escape Domos amid basically attacking multiple royals and stuff. So in order to figure out what exactly is going to be challenged, I need to understand what his code is. And in order to do that, basically I just went back to that scene that I just mentioned, and he pretty much just straight up says exactly what his code is, which is essentially anybody can change, killing isn't right unless it's for survival, seeking out murder for revenge is playing God, and killing is just going to hurt more innocent people. And so in order to really challenge that, something that I thought would be good is doing that with Voltaire. This is a character that hasn't really changed and has always been bloodthirsty from the beginning. So having him basically see that Voltaire continues to be this wrecking ball of carnage, it allows him to... It's the catalyst for that stress test. Like, should this person die, and will that end up being, will that end up making Mars a better place for everybody else? So yeah, that is, I think, the last thing that I have here. There's one more thing before this giant climax that ends up getting established, that Claythea, one of the Celthian council members, is in Domos as a spy, and basically says, oh, there's going to be a bunch of heretic Celthians arriving soon, and they're going to try to kill you all. And so they basically say, we're going to try to stop that from happening. And the royals respond by saying that the Celthians that are on their side should be wearing royal garbs in order for the humans to not be confused on which Celthian is on their side and which one is trying to kill them. While it probably is pretty obvious like which one is trying to attack you, it does help for like long distance shots and other things. Problem is, this ends up being a very big issue for Garmok and Mirko, who are coming from Labion, with the sole purpose of actually helping Domos and preventing more violence from happening. However, they are not briefed on this change of attire, and they don't necessarily get the memo because they're coming completely independent of the other Celthians that Oganda is bringing with. Well, Oganda's coming alone, but she's coming to help the Celthian spies that are already in Domos. So because these two Celthians don't have that royal garb, they end up getting attacked by the humans, which ends up once again being another stress test for Garmok and his code of anybody can change and humans are generally good. There's a small moment in one of the earlier chapters where he sees a group of humans approaching and gets scared just because they're human, which is the first time this happens, and it happens primarily because there was a moment in a previous chapter where he ends up getting beaten because he's outed as a Celthian. However, in Labion, his people are a lot more accepted. So it's the beginning of this racism within Garmok. But yeah, that I think this is going to be the last primary plot point moving into this giant climax. Oh, and one more thing. There's a couple of Celthians. I said in an earlier part of the video that there is a big like dinner feast thing that happens because I want the audience to be more acquainted with the amount of people in Labion. Introduce more citizens of Labion, as well as introducing Solomon, the leader of the Celthians who took over after Groma's death, Garmok's father. Within this chapter, because we also learn Solomon and we get to see Netea and Parlo, which are good friends of Garmok's father, and was also good friends with Garmok because Garmok did live here for his first 10 years of his life. This ends up being like a big moment where we get to see all of them. And once Zola and Garmok and all the other people end up going to Domos to stop that whole fight, what ends up happening in the background is these people end up gathering and preparing for a battle as well. So this is a whole nother party being introduced that's going to be a part of this large climactic moment, which means now I gotta write down what exactly everyone is planning and do the whole seating chart and everything for that so that I have it all in front of me and so I don't mess anything up. And then I have to establish who has what specialization in the moment so I don't mess that up, and so that I can probably write the scenes for all that happening. So now I will do a time lapse of me basically writing out everyone's specialization and what exactly their goal is going into this final climax. Okay, so I finished writing down all the character motivations and I've categorized them by who exactly they are around. So this is one group heading in. Zola is alone, but she ends up being in a situation with Voltaire against her will. Oganda comes alone. This is the spies section. This is Koda section. This is the royals. Oh, I forgot Ben. Okay, so Ben ends up being a special case. He's not the only one, but he is a conflicted case. And there are a couple of them, and I just realized I should point out who those are. Jameis is conflicted. Ben is conflicted. Oganda is conflicted. The reason Oganda is conflicted is because she wants to protect the peace treaty with Domos and de-escalate the situation, but she doesn't want to kill her own people, specifically Koda. And while she would be able to beat him in a 1v1 that isn't life or death, because there is that additional factor of having to take like her friend's life, because at the beginning of the story, her and Koda have aligned values. They're both going for the same goal, and slowly Oganda has diverged from that same path, leading to eventually conflicting viewpoints at this point of the story, which really elevates her conflicted approach to this situation. So will she be able to kill Koda? This is actually a question I can't really answer, and that's going to be something that we find out during the climax. A lot of the other characters are pretty straightforward. A lot of them want to de-escalate the situation. A lot of them want to help people in need. There's a special case here. Voltaire just wants to fight for the love of the game. This guy he just likes fighting people. And because of that, a lot of mayhem gets caused, which, like I said earlier, may end up leading to Garmok's stress-tested values of whether or not he would be able to kill someone, and whether or not he thinks Voltaire has the ability to change as a person. Anything else? Koda is a big player in this because he has a very active motivation. He wants to destroy the umbrella and kill the royals, which ends up leading the other Southians, and they basically want the same thing as well, to destroy the umbrella and ensure safety for their people. The royals, a lot of them just want to live or retain their power. Specifically, Pyre and Honor end up being big players in this, because Pyre wants to retain his power, but Honor wants to retain her power by controlling Pyre. Because Pyre is led, he is easily controlled by lust, and so he really wants Honor, but because of that, he ends up having a very large weakness that she ends up wanting to exploit, but hasn't really had the chance to fully take that into effect, and it's more so like a new desire. I don't think she's going to end up dying in this, because I have a lot planned for that character, and I think that'd be a really fun one to explore. I think that's it. Now I need to go through, which is a little bit less interesting, but I need to go through and write up everyone's specialization so that I can ensure that nobody ends up shooting fire when they shouldn't be, which would be a very silly moment. So I'm not really going to include this in the video, so this is where I will end it. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, see you in the next one. This is coming along.